Hello, and welcome to the Museum of the Jewish People. Right now, we're outside the model of Touro in Rhode Island. This synagogue is the oldest synagogue still standing in the United States. This is one of the first synagogues ever built in North America. Now, we can see from the outside that it's built in the classic colonial manner. But if you look at the gate, you can see something a bit strange. That the building is askew, the building is tilted at a weird angle to the street. Why is that? Well, the Jewish community came to the Rhode Island governor and asked to build a synagogue. They said, sure, go for it. And they said, listen, we have this thing, we want the synagogue to point towards the Jerusalem. And they said, it's fine, but the grid, the city grid, doesn't really suit that. So the Jews did something remarkable. They tilted the entire building so it could point exactly at Jerusalem. Now, why is this amazing? All synagogues in the world point towards Jerusalem, and yet all synagogues around the world are kind of in their city grid. Why is that? Because Jerusalem is far away and you can point at it in a very broad manner. But this community were willing to stand out and make everyone know that they're pointing toward Jerusalem, that this is a synagogue. And this shows their rising confidence, right? The rising strength and confidence of American Jews, of North American Jews. But these Jews were not just any Jews. These are Sephardi Jews. The name Sephardi means Spanish. These Jews came from Spain and Portugal, which they were expelled from 250 years before that. That is why we see the door on the bima here, right? This door leads to a crypt where they could hide in case something bad happened. And actually, not 20 years go by, and this community's worst fear materialized. After the American Revolution, the Jews don't know what is going to happen to them. All of a sudden, they're not under the rule of the king, but under the rule of the president. They're not part of a colony, but part of a state, and they are fearful. In 1790, George Washington comes here as part of his tour of the states. Rhode Island is the last state to ratify the Constitution, and he comes here, and this community sends him a beautiful letter in which they quote Jefferson and other philosophers of the modern era, and they ask him to permit them to continue being Jewish. And George Washington does something amazing. He writes back and says that he cannot grant them something which is not his to give. He says, you have rights as people and you have religious freedom. And that is why you can do whatever you want as long as you don't harm other people. This is very important because that letter back signifies the freedom allowed American Jews, and it also came before the Second Amendment, before the Bill of Rights. And in the Second Amendment, we see ratified in the Constitution religious freedom. In order to commemorate this event, we can see on the second floor of the synagogue, we can see a portrait of George Washington hanging there. And to this day, every year, on the anniversary of the exchange of letters, there is a ceremonial reading of those letters in this community. We can also see a quote from the letter hanging outside the National American Jewish Museum of History in Philadelphia.